I know. I know. I was on here talking a lot about the Lions, especially in my podcast episodes, and I was really happy that the Lions lost, as a Bears fan. Um, but it's time to really get serious and kind of do a little bit of a deep dive into, you know, their season as a whole and their outlook going into this off season. And the real question is their Super Bowl window, the Detroit Lions Super Bowl window, closing? Or is it already closed? We'll be going in more into that in this video. What is up, guys? Welcome back to Soback Sports, and I'm back with another video. And today I'm going to be talking about the Detroit Lions a little bit and talking about their outlook going into this season, or sorry, off season. But before we get into that, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot, especially we're going into the off season. There's going to be a lot of content to cover. And make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit a like. It really helps me out a lot, especially with the algorithm. And let's get on with the video. So, Detroit, their season ended this past weekend. And especially now with the coaching market, it's gone crazy, especially with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, being in the mix of head coaching vacancies. And right now, they are going to be out there interviewing, especially for a bunch of jobs. And I think that's one thing that the Detroit Lions are going to really miss, especially going into this upcoming offseason and into next season, where can they replicate what they did this season? Because if you look at the stats specifically, if I can pull it up real quick, Jared Goff under Ben Johnson had 4,629 yards of passing. Jameer Gibbs, 1,412 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 1,263 yards. Team statistically, if you want to look at the team stats, second in passing yards, sixth in rushing yards, first in points for, seventh in points against. And yes, that number for points against went down due to the fact that the Detroit Lions did face some injuries, which I'll get more into that later on. And this team, this was the season where they were putting it all together. That it was going to be the season where they make the big run and eventually go to the Super Bowl, but they fell short, unfortunately for them. Um, and a lot of things came into factor. Like I said, injuries played a huge role and it kind of derailed their position going into the divisional round because that kind of limits the capabilities of the defense because you don't have any Aiden Hutchinson. If we look at the depth chart real quick, because that's like, or the injuries actually, like, look at how many injuries they had this entire season, and most of them were just from the defensive line. Like, you have Lee McNeil, defensive tackle, injury reserve; Aiden Hutchinson, reserve; Emmanuel Mosley, reserve; Dorsey, DT. Like, look at all these injury reserves, and then when you talk about the roster as a whole, excuse me, the depth chart, like you have a bunch of players, but they are it's it's not your top tier defense. And that's what really I meant here because look at how many IRs there are. Like, and they all fall to the fourth thing because they have, bunch of practice squad players and people that they picked up with the waiver wire. But that just shows you that while this team did under underperform in their expectations in the playoffs, there were a lot of underlying factors that will prevent them from, making it that far into the Super Bowl. But in terms of the outlook, the Detroit Lions have a lot of questions to answer this offseason. Specifically when it comes to getting not only their team healthy, but replicating the explosiveness of their offense and their defense. And what I mean by that is the two coordinators, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, were the catalysts that allowed this offense to be really good. And yes, we can give credit where credit is due to Dan Campbell and his aggressive nature on offense, but you got to give credit to the coordinators because they've been putting the work, putting the effort to make this team. And I know a lot of people want to say Aaron Glenn didn't do anything this season. Like he fell short in the end. When it matters the most, he wasn't there. He was letting up points. Like I said, there were a lot of injuries this past season that prevented them from reaching their highest potential as a team. And that's going to be affecting what you can do as a defensive coordinator. Like that's the end all be all. And I thought that Aaron Glenn did a great job for most part for what he was given, especially in this season, because they were still able to go 15-2. Were able to scrape out a bunch of wins, and their whoever was their backup, their scheme wise was really solid. It's just that in the playoffs, it kind of just went downhill because it just felt like the team just fell flat. When I was watching that game, it just felt that the team just was not on the same page. Yes, the offense tried to get something going here and there, but as a common denominator, the team just fell flat. They were just not prepared. But remember, this team had success even the year prior when they had the NFC Championship run. Ben Johnson was supposed to be a candidate then, but he instead came back and ran it back and unfortunately didn't meet expectations. But that being said, they're really going to miss Ben Johnson and his ability to call plays because that's what allowed the Detroit Lions to really thrive and made them super dangerous as well, especially when it comes to any one of their defenses. Because not only can they attack you on the ground, but they can attack you in the air as well. And Jared Goff, he had his moments. He had a lot of moments, good moments this season. That one game where he went 18 for 18 and caught a touchdown, insane times. But constantly, I think it's getting to a point where in the playoffs he tends to revert, and that's been an issue. Even in some games in the regular season, Goff threw 5 interceptions against the Texans, and they still won that game. So there's a lot of issues with Goff, but I think he's still going to be your quarterback. I don't think he's going anywhere because he has that contract that they have to deal with. And from reports, and based on reports, it's saying that Jared Goff is going to be the one that's going to help be in the process of picking out their next offensive coordinator. I think it's okay, but I mean, if Jared Goff is not your long term solution after his contract is up, I think that it's going to be a little bit of a why. I don't know why you would do that personally, but then again, he's here nor there. I just think that they're going to really miss Ben Johnson, and it's going to definitely hinder. And they really, really need to nail this offensive coordinator job, hands down, because there's only a few people that can replicate what Ben Johnson can do, especially on the offensive side of the ball and the offensive scheming. Because Ben Johnson has been on that team since 2019 and was able to build it brick by brick into what it is today, especially developing that trenches and that the offense, getting the skill position pieces to make things work. And it was beautiful, but now that he gave you the blueprint, you have to bring in someone that can understand that blueprint and replicate what he has done. Because I think their best chance for them to make, a similar run to this year is that they continue to um, do the same kind of play style, but change it up a bit here and there. And make sure that you minimize Jared Goff's mistakes as well, because I think that's what's going to cause you a lot of trouble in the playoffs. And we saw that firsthand against the Commanders team, who's playing with house money and was able to boat race that entire team. Then again, injuries are a part of this team, and free agency. People will tend to leave. People will demand contracts, especially after this crazy season. The Lions did a good job playing like Elliot McNeil and a bunch of other players throughout the season. And a question of like Amik Robinson with that injury that he had today, that in that game that was like really bad. How long will he be out on defense? Who will know? Time will tell. So they have a lot of things to really rectify, but I think let me answer the question at the end of it. I think people are wanting to that. I don't think the Super Bowl window is closed whatsoever. I think that's way too far when it comes to the analysis of that. I think that they have to really address a few things in order to make a play. And I think now that they had that experience of being at the highest of highs, I think that then now, like, okay, it doesn't matter if we are number one seed. We have to execute like as if we are clawing our way into the playoffs. Like every game is our last game. That's the mentality that I think that is going to be portrayed throughout the entire offseason and then eventually into this upcoming season, because that's the only way you're going to make it back. And listen, in the NFL, Super Bowl windows close really fast, and it's not guaranteed every year. Just because you have a Super Bowl team, you're going to be in the Super Bowl or in the playoffs or in the mix. That's just the way the game is. That's why teams like the Packers or the Bengals, who just recently went to the Super Bowl, didn't make it back because of all the issues that have been happening since that Super Bowl. Packers, after that Super Bowl in 2011, haven't made it back to the Super Bowl since. So that just really goes to show how important it is this offseason that the Lions do fix these issues. And while they're not that crazy issues, it will mean it's big enough that it will determine whether they make the NFC Championship game or even the Super Bowl next year. But then again, time will tell, and this offseason will tell. That's going to do it for today's video. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And if you made it this far in the video, please hit that subscribe button. Really means a lot. We're trying to hit 600 subscribers. Podcast episodes every Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I'm going to put out a lot more content out for you guys to enjoy. And let me know down in the comments what you guys think as well. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.